All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this meeting and this conversation, training, a little bit of everything. I'm pretty much, so who I am, I'm Jessica Sanchez. I am under the umbrella of the multilingual department, working exclusively in the interpreting and translations department. And with that, I would like to share presentation and then we'll get started and go from there. Well, share. Okay, finally, I think I'm sharing. All right. So again, I'm Jessica Sanchez. I'm in the Interpreting and Translations Department. I have been with Fayette County. This is my 21st year, if I'm not mistaken, serving the district in different roles. And for the past 10 years, I've been in this department. Pretty much what I specialize in is providing language access to all staff and families so that we can bridge that gap and that communication barrier, supporting everybody district-wide. So today I'll be presenting to you about interpreting and translation services in Fayette County. And I'd like to get started with some quick facts. So did you know that in Lexington, Kentucky, as of March of this 2024 school year, this year, we had over 165 spoken languages and dialects. Our city is very, very diverse, and that diversity comes into our school district. Of those 160 something languages and dialects, there are 90 plus languages represented any given year, 91, 96, 93. It goes up and down based on student enrollment and such, but we are always at the 90 something languages in our school district. The top 10 languages as of March 2024 in that specific order were Spanish, Swahili, Arabic, French, Nepali, Kinyarwanda, Japanese, Chinese, Portuguese, and then Cambodian or Mer, the language for Cambodia, for that country. You also have my contact information and my FCPS email address. If I am not mistaken, there is another Jessica Sanchez in the district. My email is jessica.sanchez. The other person has a number or something after her last name. But usually mine also in the district master email list, mine will have in parentheses IAK for IAKSS. And then my office phone number, we recently changed our new numbers, 422-0607. So why do we provide interpreters across the district to our parents and families? I've had that question come up directly to me from staff. I've even heard, we're in the United States, we're in America, and here we speak English, Jessica. Why do we have to provide interpreters? Yes, I understand we're in the United States, but I also understand that all of us are employees of Fayette County Public Schools, and per federal law, due to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we will comply in meeting the law and meeting the requirements, and we must provide, any public school district must provide interpretation and translation services that are available to the best of our ability. So no, Fayette County will not break that law, and yes, we will continue to provide the service regardless of whether English is the language of the country that we live in. That includes interpreters, the spoken interpreters, and that also includes document translations. Schools must communicate information to limited English proficient parents in a language that they can understand about any program, service, event going on in the district. And so that is why we provide language access services to parents and families. I do know that sometimes I tend to speak pretty fast. I think it's my nature. You've seen me walk, I speed walk. But if I'm speaking fast, let me know and I can try to slow down a little bit. So interpreting best practices, something that we always stress, it's big, big, very big, is that we do not utilize students or family and friends as interpreters. We do not rely on them. We do not want to use them to interpret for us for any situation, particularly sensitive situation, legal meetings and such. Reason why we do not use interpreters is because I always use myself as an example. And if anybody here in this meeting is bilingual, I want to say you'll understand after I explain it. So for me, I consider myself perfectly bilingual. Spanish is my primary language. I've spoken it my whole life. I learned English going to school. And so Spanish is my primary language. And growing up, I was always going with my parents to, I grew up in a South Texas, like right at the border, 5-minute drive, and we'd be in Mexico, come back and we'd be in Texas. And because we were so close to the border, growing up, like 95% of the population there was Hispanic, the majority of them being Mexican. And so everybody spoke English and Spanish, and there was really no need for my parents to learn English because everywhere they went, everybody spoke Spanish. The exception were that when I was growing up, the important people or like the teachers and the principal and such, they were white people, white monolingual people, the teachers oftentimes as well. And so when I was going with my parents to the parent-teacher conferences, we didn't have interpreters back in the day for whatever reason. So guess who the interpreter was for that parent-teacher conference? It was me. I was the interpreter for that parent-teacher conference, and I guess I did the best I could, and I tried, and I clearly remember teachers using gestures. I was a talker. I like to talk in class, and one time a teacher was telling my mom that Jessica talks all day, and make sure you tell your mom that. And so I told my mom, all embarrassed, that my teacher, Miss Brooke, is saying that I talk all day. And I did tell her, but the teacher wanted to make sure that I told her. And so the teacher said, Jessica, blah, 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 all day long. But I was the interpreter for my parents growing up all the time, and I thought I was doing good. Now, when I joined the interpreting department and I learned that interpreting and translation, it's a whole profession in its own, and I started actually going out to interpret to these parent-teacher conferences and these ARC meetings, special education meetings, expulsion hearings. You all, the terminology that I need to be familiar with, it was amazing how I had to step in like for an arc and I had to say, I'm sorry, would you mind elaborating what you mean by XY phrase? And they would tell me, and then I would be able to better interpret. As a grown adult who's been interpreting her whole life and who's been interpreting even for Fayette County for years, I still today have to seek clarification on terminology and words. That's having all these experience behind me. Imagine us utilizing a student to interpret. Yes, they may be bilingual, but do they know the terminology? Are they familiar with everything behind the scenes? Interpreting for one of the very first ARC meetings that I interpreted for, the teachers were introducing themselves. And I'm Miss Smith, I'm the classroom teacher. So my interpretation was, yo soy la señora Smith, soy la maestra del salón de clase. And then here comes, I'm Miss Warner, I'm the VI teacher. Yo soy la señora Warner. What's VI? So then I had to step in and say, would you please elaborate what VI represents, what VI stands for? Oh, yes, I'm the visually impaired teacher. Well, now I know. But I didn't know that I could ask or that I could interrupt, that I could seek clarification until I took a certification course to become an interpreter. Do our students know this? Do they know they can interrupt? Do they know they can ask? Or will they just go and omit stuff and interpret as best they can? So that is a huge against the law. Not only that, but they're minors. Our students are minors, and we're relying on a minor to interpret for us when we utilize them. Again, against the law. And then big is the FERPA confidentiality. So if I'm at the school, in the front office of a school, and I have a parent walk in who speaks Japanese. I don't speak Japanese. Nobody in the office speaks Japanese, but we know they're coming to meet with the principal about some concerns. And I have the mom and the daughter in my office, and they're meeting with the principal. And we say, well, let's pull Yoshiko. She's very fluent in English and Japanese, and she can interpret for us. That's a student. So we pull Yoshiko to come interpret for us. Well, next thing you know, this mom is placing a complaint on another student who is sexting her daughter. And now Yoshiko, a student who's maybe in the same classes that this student is in, now the student knows that XY student is sexting this student and sending inappropriate pictures and text messages. What does that student we're utilizing to interpret know about confidentiality? Next thing you know, the student walks out of that meeting and goes and tells the world that this person is sending this other person sexting messages. And now everybody knows. Huge FERPA violation. Another reason why we do not use students. And then also because another reason why we don't use students or family members is because there is a conflict of interest. When we have family, sometimes parents come in and they're like, oh, this is my oldest sister, this is my oldest son, and they can interpret for us. Yes, that's fine. However, we do have interpreters in the district who can support us. The interpreters in the district are certified. They know the best practices. They know the interpreting code of ethics, what they can and cannot do while interpreting. They know the ins and outs. They know they can be sued at any given time for misinterpreting, for omitting information, and therefore the quality of their service is in line with our standards. So yes, we can tell the parents, sure, your daughter can stay here. However, we do have to utilize one of our contracted interpreters for the district. Oftentimes I've been in that place where I'm there to interpret and the family brings a relative. And if the parent really insists my son will be interpreting or my daughter will be interpreting, we let them interpret, but then I, the interpreter, will step in when I feel the need, when I feel something's been omitted, something is not clear, when mom's asking questions, what does she mean by that? And so I step in as the interpreter. But again, always utilize our staff because there is a huge conflict of interest. You could be telling the parent, I use like the example of the medical field. I've had interpreters come and tell me, hey, Jessica, I took my wife to the doctor and she's pregnant. And the doctor told me that her pregnancy was at risk, but I didn't want to worry my wife with that. So I didn't tell her that. I told her the doctor said everything is fine and my baby's born and nothing happened. See, I didn't have to worry my wife with that. Huge disagreement for me because there's a huge conflict of interest. You should have never been the interpreter because you're the husband, you're a relative, a direct relative. And then unfortunately, a couple months down the road, he came back and he said his baby had passed away. And this was all new to the mom and the shock and everything. So again, for those three reasons, we do not utilize students because it is against the law, because it is a huge FERPA violation, and because of the conflict of interest. And then when we take that interpreting certificate, we learn the importance of the profession we're doing. We learn about the legalities. Yes, anybody can sue us, and therefore the quality of my service needs to be up to par. And then I've also had people who are bilingual come up and say, hey, Jessica, to be honest with you, my respects to the people that interpret, but that is not down my lane. Yes, I'm bilingual, but no, that's not something that I feel comfortable doing. So do know that we want to stay away from utilizing students as interpreters. Any questions on that? All right. So then I transition into the interpreting and the translations department, who we are. So in our department, we have an in-house team of interpreters, any given year, 85 to 100, 103 contracted interpreters, supporting a little over 37 languages, who I coordinate and send out to the schools pretty much on a daily basis, sometimes even on weekends. early morning hours. Some schools will host 6:45 a.m. meetings to be flexible with the parents and such. Some people will stay after hours, after 5, to meet with the parents. I'm always coordinating interpreters, sending them out and about to the schools to support you with your interpreting needs. This interpreting team, about 85% of them have an interpreting certificate, meaning they know the code of ethics, the expectations, best practices, all of that. And the wealth that this team combined brings, it's innumerable, you all. These people are contractors, therefore they do not have any guaranteed number of hours per week or per month. We call you on an as-needed basis. Therefore, they don't only work for Fayette County. They also work interpreting in the medical field. They work interpreting in the courts. Some of them interpret for our own court here in Lexington. Some of them interpret for USCIS, Immigration Services. They've interpreted for the Army, for the FBI. The wealth of knowledge they bring is innumerable. And that's the team that we have to support you with interpreters. Also, something else that we provide our interpreter team with is mandatory interpreter training. Every school year, we provide mandatory interpreter training where we have different departments come and present to the team. Like right now, we have a lot of Brigance testing going on. That is a test that we give our incoming kindergarteners. And so we had Ms. Brooke Stinson come in and present to the team what to expect during Brigance testing, what is your role during Brigance testing, etc. The same for special ed. They come in and talk to them about that. So we provide ample training to our team that you should be utilizing to meet your interpreting and language access needs. Another part of our interpreting and translations department is the multilingual family ambassador team. So this is the 3rd year that we have employees, and they are not contractors. They are not contractors. They are FCPS employees whose role is family ambassadors. All of these people speak at least 2 languages, the English and another language. Our team is a team of 8, and they support around 10 or 11 languages combined. They are housed at 701 East Main Street, and the languages they support are Arabic, Chinese, French, Italian, Kinyarwanda, Lingala, Spanish, Swahili, Kirundi, and then some other dialects that they also are able to support fluently in. They are housed at 701 East Main Street, our old Fayette County Public Schools main building. But even though they're housed there, they're not always there. They are running around on a daily basis to support schools based on need and demand. They are also the ones at the front of the line when we have emergency situations, district-wide. For instance, couple months ago, unfortunately, we had one of our Fayette County Public School students pass away over the weekend. So early Monday morning, they were the ones who were out there at the school supporting our crisis response team and our mental health people with whatever needs are, to support the students and the parents and families, the staff as well at the school that this happened at. The services that they support schools and provide with they're always supporting with enrollment, district-wide enrollment of our non-English speaking families. We also host multilingual workshops. Twice a month, we're hosting different workshops. Those workshops take place at 701 East Main in one of our conference rooms there. And pretty much they're informational workshops for parents. The most recent one, or we have one coming up here on Monday. It is a workshop about access testing. And it is a workshop about attendance matters. We want to inform our parents attendance, basic attendance information. Did you know you have up to 10 parent notes you can write? Did you know that you have up to 3 business days to turn in a doctor's excuse? How your child being tardy continually affects him? How many absences can your child accumulate before Fayette County starts sending you letters to take you to court? Stuff like that, stuff that many parents are not aware of because the countries that we're coming from, it's different. Child can miss school and nothing happens. It's all right. And so people come here and they're like, oh, they can miss school. It's all right. Nothing happens. Well, in the United States, it's different. And we need to educate our families so that they can support us and continue sending their kids to school and continue asking the right questions to be informed. We do.
Jessica, sorry about that. How is that information about those dates and all that stuff communicated to all Fayette County families? Is that something sent out in an IC message to everyone? Or I just would love, kind of additional information on how we publicize that to our families.
Yes, so we work with our Tammy Lane in our technology department or communications department. She posts that on our social media for Fayette County Public Schools. She posts that on our Fayette County Public Schools website. And in the past, our ambassadors, we would print flyers that we would send. We would print like a big one and we would send out to each school to post by the main entrance. And we would also send print copies to the EL teachers so that they could help us distribute that to the families. This school year, a lot of things have changed in the printing department, and we're not able to print as we were in the past, but we are still sending these communications to the EL teachers at all of our schools.
Can we
Those
be added
emails,
to that? Yeah, can we be added to that list as well?
yes, yes. Ms. Rainey will be sharing the lists of everybody, and I will be sharing it with the ambassador team so that we can start sending you that information as well. We send PDFs of the flyer of the upcoming event. And we have that flyer typically translated in all the languages that our ambassadors work in. Some schools, like Athens, Charlesburg, for instance, they'll say, Jessica, we have a high Japanese speaking population. Can you translate that to Japanese? Yes, we will, and we do translate it to Japanese. At our last event a couple of weeks ago, we had a lot of Japanese families present. Some schools will say, Jessica, we also need Nepali. We have a lot of Nepali speaking parents. Yes, we'll translate it to Nepali and invite these families. So yes, we'll be happy to share that with you. We do a lot of parent and family advocacy, interdepartment collaboration. We are currently going out to schools to support them with their events. A lot of schools are doing like Hispanic Heritage Month things. And they are, as part of those events that they have going on, they're presenting on attendance, they're presenting on like Class Dojo, and they're asking us to go and present to our families in our respective languages. And we are going out to support with that as well. So all of that is part of what the multilingual family ambassadors do to support district-wide. In years past, ambassadors were assigned specific schools. But this school year, we're trying something different because when they were assigned specific schools, not every school was receiving the services, or not every school was benefiting from the many services that the ambassadors can support. So this year, nobody is assigned specific schools. We are working district-wide based on the need and demand. So I've spoken so much of the ambassadors. Who are they? So you'll see their faces here. You may have already seen them out at their schools, but we have Miss May Chang. She speaks Chinese and Spanish. Miss Maritza Giordano, who speaks Spanish. Barbara Gratoni for Spanish. Patrick Iraquiza speaks Kinyarwanda, Swahili, and Kirundi. Monica Pruneda, Spanish, French, and Italian. Lilian Muhimbundo, Kinyarwanda, Swahili, Kirundi as well. Georgina Rizkai, French and Arabic. And then Ibrahim Baraka is our newest ambassador addition this year, and he speaks Kinyarwanda, Swahili, Kirundi, Kihunde, and Lingala. So just to put names with faces when you see them out at your schools. How does Fayette County support you with language services, with language access? So toward April, May last year, we updated the Your Right to an Interpreter poster, which you can see here on the slide on the left. And we send it out to every school and every department in the district. Every language in that poster is 100% a Fayette County Public Schools language. It's not every language that we have, but every language that is in that poster, we have represented in our district. And pretty much what it is, we ask our staff to post it close to where the parents visit, close to the front office. Some schools requested 2 posters, and they posted an additional one by the counselor's office and such. And pretty much when a family walks into our building and say they have somebody right now who speaks Chinese, and nobody here in this building speaks Chinese. So we would direct them to that poster, and they will point to their language. And in there, it says what it says there at the top in English. You have the right to an interpreter at no cost to you. Please point to your language and an interpreter will be called. And then we ask them to wait. After that, we utilize Language Line, and I'll be talking about Language Line here in a little bit. But when we utilize Language Line, we do get a human and live interpretation on the phone. We also, last school year, Ms. Rose Santiago, Multilingual Department Director, distributed Vasco devices. They look something like what you see on the screen as well. And it was distributed free of charge to every school, one device. And it is a phenomenal voice interpreter, voice translator tool.
I
I
have
can
one
speak.
more quick question about those Vasquez. I actually had to use mine this morning because I accompanied a family to an eye doctor appointment and took it with me. So I took it out of our building to use. Is there a way to get a second one in the building in a case like that where we're busy with, somebody's using it, we need another one kind of thing? Or I don't know if
Um,
you're under or where.
Yes, so last year we distributed free of charge one to every school and department, and unfortunately we cannot distribute a second one. The budget is not there. We don't have that budget to distribute another device. However, because of the volume we purchased and we have a good relationship with the vendor, they have negotiated a better rate for us if we want to purchase additional ones. I know some schools have already reached out to me because they want to purchase one out of their Section 6 funds or whatever funds they have available. I know for a school, possibly I believe the PTA purchased one of those, but the cost is around $350, $375 with the discounted rate. And anytime there are updates, they honor our updates. Like they update it free of charge,
So if we
like
are
adding
interested
new
in getting a
languages
second
and
one,
such.
then we can just email you and let you know, and you can give us vendor
I
information.
can get you in touch. Yes, I can get you in touch with the vendor and they'll be happy to honor the discounted price.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
But what it does is that I speak to that, this is a calculator, but I speak to it in Spanish, or I speak to it in English, and the parent in front of me speaks Japanese. The parent will hear the message in Japanese once I set it up, English, Japanese. They hear the message in Japanese. The parent then responds, spoken voice in Japanese, and I hear the message in English. Pretty neat tool. It also works as a voice translator. So not only will I speak to it in English and it tell the parent in Japanese, the parents will hear the voice in Japanese, but the parent will also see it in the screen in Japanese. It translates. And then it is also a good photo translator. A teacher has a newsletter that they send out every week. They can take a picture of it and it select the language and it translates that for them. And then they use that via talking points or whatever it is to send it to families or via email and send it to or print it out even, send it in backpacks. It supports up to 108 languages. It comes with free internet. There's no need to connect to Wi-Fi. And is there Wi-Fi in this building? It's already included. And one of the best features is that it has email capacity. So I had a parent in my office and we had a conversation about transportation, and she wants to switch the son from the bus to be a walker. And next thing you know, something happens, and as a student was walking home, and the parent comes in and says, "I never told you, Jessica, that my son was to be a walker. Why did you send him as a walker?" Well, once we have that initial conversation, I can email it to my email, even to this parent's email if she wants it, or to the teacher or whoever, and I can have a record of our conversation as documentation for documentation purposes. And I can save that so that, when future comes and the parent says, "I never told you, why did you send them as a walker?" "Oh, yes, sir. Let me pull up my information. On May 2nd, at 10:35, like it's very exact, very precise. You were here in my office and we had a conversation. Here's what you told me and here's what I responded. And that's why I sent your son home as a walker." So that's a
Jessica, I
phenomenal
have a quick
feature.
question about that
Yes.
device. Like our student here does not speak one word of English yet. Is in fourth grade, and so the teacher wanted me to ask the office if they can use that device because every time that he needs to communicate, he has to open his computer, which is uncomfortable, and the phone is like tiny, and the device is tiny and easy to use it. But is there a stipulation that the student cannot use it? Is it only for teachers in the office, or what
Um,
is the?
so although there's not a stipulation, we recommend against it, because if it is a service that we provide to one student, it is a service that we must provide to all. But my child is a Spanish speaking child, and the Swahili speaking child is getting the benefit of utilizing a tool, and my child is not. Why is that inequity there? We do not have the funds to purchase individual Vascos for each individual student. And then we don't want for the student to be relying on that device time and time again.
Right.
Teachers, EO teachers and staff have the strategies to work and navigate through the English learning process. We can utilize it here and there, emergency situations such, but we don't want to make it an everyday thing to where the student is now relying on this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's just a few days for him to get used to the words. So we were wondering if it was convenient for him to use at least this just the first week. Yeah, we definitely do not want him to rely on the device. So that's good.
Yes. And if the school decides to do that, you'll be doing that for every English learner. They'll be getting it for a week. And then what happens if this English learner needs it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And there's only one device. And so we discourage against it for students. We use it for staff for immediate communication, and we use it for basic communication. It is computer generated interpretations and translations. So I want to say, although it is not 100% accurate, it does have a 99 point something accuracy rate. But regardless, whenever it is sensitive information, legal terminology that's being used, a legal meeting, we want to rely on a human interpreter for those meetings. Again, just additional information on that Vasco. It's an AI translator that harnesses the power of 10 translation engines in one. 108 languages supported, and just additional information if you wanted that down the road. A little bit more on interpreting and translations department, language access and language services available. So via our contracted interpreter team, we do provide on-site interpreting. When you require for an interpreter to be physically present at your school, we use that a lot, like for counseling and supports. We use that a lot for student evaluations for special education. When we require an on-site interpreter, you put in a request through the system, and then it makes it to me on my end, and then I work on getting an interpreter assigned and confirmed out there. We also provide virtual interpreting, so you don't need an interpreter to be physically present at the school. We can have a meeting such as we're having right now. I go ahead and put it in through the system, and I get somebody assigned. Sometimes you don't need an interpreter, either virtual or present in person. You just need to make a phone call to a family to let them know that Maribel fell during gym time and she's coming home with a scraped knee. We have the telephonic interpreting services available via an on-call list. So Fayette County has an on-call list of interpreters for multiple languages that we recommend be utilized. The way that works, though, let's say that we have 5 Spanish interpreters there, and I need to call Maribel's mom to tell her she's coming home with a scraped knee, is that I would call the first person on the list. If they answer, they can help me. That means they can help me on the spot, make a quick phone call. I relay the information via a 3-way phone call, and then nothing happens. But if that first person doesn't answer, we go to the second and the third, and then eventually nobody's answering, or I'm like, I can't do this all day long. Then we use language line, which I'll be talking about here in a minute. But any telephonic interpreting, when utilizing interpreters, know that they must be via 3-way phone calls. Why 3-way phone calls? So all of you here right now are interpreters and you speak Spanish, and I am a teacher at XY school. So I need to ask you to call the parents and tell them that Maribel had a scraped knee and nothing happens. She was fine, and we put an ice pack, and she's coming home with a scraped knee. Can you please call them on my behalf? So then you're like, yeah, sure. You call on your behalf and you call the parent to let her know Maribel scraped her knee, etc. Well, parent wants to know, what knee was it? And what happened? Did somebody push her? Did she hit herself in concrete, or was it at the grass, at recess? What exactly happened? Well, you don't have a response to what exactly happened. So you have to say, well, Miss Sanchez, Maribel's my daughter. So you have to say, well, Miss Sanchez, let me call the teacher back and I'll get back to you. So then you call the teacher. Well, the teacher's teaching, so you don't get her. So then you have to leave a voicemail. Well, the teacher finally gets to her voicemail and she calls you back. Well, guess what? You're in the middle of an interpreting assignment and you can't get her call right away. So that creates a lot of back and forth and back and forth. Next thing you know, the next day the parent is in the office very upset. Somebody called me and they told me my daughter scraped her knee. They wouldn't give me additional information. My daughter had surgery on that knee. a year ago. And I needed that information because I need to know if this is going to affect her. And she plays soccer and she blah, blah. And next thing you know, everybody's upset because we didn't communicate via a three-way phone call from the very beginning. Had we done a three-way phone call where you, the interpreter, I, the teacher, and the parent are present, when the parent asks, what exactly happened? Was it in concrete? Was it during recess in the grass? What knee, the left or the right? The teacher would have that information that you and I as interpreters don't always have. So to avoid all that runaround, we always encourage three-way phone calls. And then also because our interpreters, they are contracted interpreters. When we interpret, that means we're saying what the English speaker is saying, and then we're repeating that in another language. When we call on behalf of the staff, we're not interpreting. We're acting on behalf of the staff. We're acting as if we were staff, and contractors are not part of the staff. So know that always for any telephonic interpreting, we need to utilize three-way phone calls. If the on-call list that Fayette County has doesn't work, then our next resource is Language Line. Language Line is a company that we contract with, and they provide telephonic interpreting services 24/7, 365 days a year. Again, they always do three-way phone calls. They will never call anybody on our behalf because when they do that, they're not interpreting. They have an 800 number. There is a specific FCPS code, and every school and department has their own unique department code for tracking and documentation purposes. So that's another language, another support that we have for language access. And then we also provide document translations, flyers, emails, any communication that goes out, newsletters that goes out, we do translate those. We also have in our multilingual department, we have a shared drive. And if all of you don't have access already, Ms. Rainey, just send me a list and I'll grant everybody access. We have a standard list of already translated documents. A lot of departments are there, like we have technology, the AUP Chromebook user agreement. We have it in English. We have it in Japanese, in Spanish, in Swahili, in the top languages. We have filter permission slips posted. We have medical forms. If your child has asthma, fill out this form. If your child needs an EpiPen at school, fill out this form. A lot of documents there already translated, readily available for your use. So if you don't have access to that already, let me know and I'll be happy to grant you access to that. So then how do you request interpreters and document translations? We have an in-house online system that we utilize to request interpreters. Currently, we are in the process of switching to another system, a better upgraded system that our technology department is creating for us. But the link you can see right here, designated staff at every school and every department has access to the list. For instance, the principals, EO teachers, preschool teachers, ACCs, mental health specialists, friskies, you name it, that list right there. And any other principals designee have access to request interpreters for everybody at the school. I get that on my end, and then I start working on getting it filled and sent out to the interpreters. Currently, the system, every school year, we receive anywhere between 13 and 18,000 interpreting and translations requests. Each and every one of those assignments, the system right now that we have in place is manually operated. Each and every one of those assignments that you all submit, there's a human behind that, and that human is myself. I touch that assignment to contact an interpreter, see who's available. Sometimes I contact 3, 4, 5 interpreters and they're not available. I'm already booked. Sorry, Jessica, I'm already booked. That's why we always say the sooner you know the meeting is happening and you need an interpreter, send it in. Because if you send a request right now for tomorrow, I guarantee you I'm not going to get anybody. People's schedules are packed. I always try. I still make phone calls. I send out text messages. And I always try, but sometimes it's hard to fill last minute requests. The new system, once it rolls in, we're hoping it'll roll in sometime in October, will be automated. So there will not be a need for, hopefully the system will fill those requests faster. It'll be automated. It's no more Jessica sending out text messages or texting people, calling people, sending out an email. It is now that the contractors on their side will be connecting to the system and to accept assignments that are available and filling their schedules as they see those assignments pop up. As soon as we have more information about that new system, we will be sending it out and sharing. But that's what that is. just a wrap up, I guess, when working with interpreters, remember the best practices. It is always three-way communication. In our interpreting role, we are supposed to repeat what the English speaker said, but in another language. That's why we always promote the three-way communication. And then if you are working with an interpreter, remember to use plain language, free of jargon, idioms, and slang, that it should be intended to be understood by a wide range audience, different literacy levels. Always remember to pause every 2 to 3 sentences. If every interpreter works differently. I'm a big note taker. And if you don't pause, I'm going to keep taking notes. And eventually, you know, I can only take so many notes. I'm going to interrupt you and ask you to please allow me time to finish up my notes so that I can start interpreting what you said. So always pause every 2 to 3 sentences to give the interpreter plenty of time to interpret. When you are working with an interpreter, you want to speak directly with the person you are communicating with. The interpreter is there to be a voice. So let's say you're meeting with a parent and I'm your interpreter. Yes, it's ideal. I want to build a relationship with you and I want to get to know you, but primarily you want to get to know the parent. You want to build a relationship with the parent. And we always encourage eye contact between you and the parent because you will be meeting with the parent year round, 5, 6 times. I'm your interpreter today. Next month, it'll be another interpreter. And then the month after that, it'll be another one. So we always encourage eye communication, eye contact directly with the parent. You speak directly to the parent as if I wasn't there, as if the interpreter wasn't there. I'm there to be your voice as well as the parent's voice. Be aware of verbal and nonverbal cues that vary across cultures. I know for us here in the United States, eye contact is a symbol of respect. I'm listening to you. In other cultures, eye contact is disrespect. And therefore, yes, these students and these parents will not see us, look at us in the eye. Be aware of those things, verbal and nonverbal cues. Allow room for clarification. If you're having a meeting that would take 15 minutes in English to have this meeting, plan your time accordingly, because if it takes 15 minutes in English, it will take about twice 30 minutes because I'll be your Spanish interpreter. The interpreter will be interpreting for you. And then keep in mind, we always have clarification. If anything like the VI example, I'm the VI teacher. I'm going to have to step in and clarify and seek clarification because it is my role as an interpreter to be as accurate and transparent as possible. I don't want to be omitting anything. I don't want to be saying, had I said in Spanish, VI, translated just like the words. Yo soy la maestra VI. What does that mean? It means it's a mistranslation. I'm not being transparent. So allow room for that when working with interpreters and plan your time accordingly. And then lastly, we're always recruiting in the interpreting department. If you know of anybody who speaks another language, any language, send them my way. We're always recruiting interpreters and document translators. If you encounter a parent who's very fluent, send them my way. I'll be happy to direct them to where they can obtain their interpreter certification and discuss how we work with interpreters. And if they want to join, I'll be more than happy to bring them on board. I know that was a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions for me? And if you're like me, once I leave the meeting, you're like, I should have asked this, I should have asked that. No problem at all. Just send me an email, call me. I'm here in the office all afternoon. So give me a call, send me an email, and I'll be happy to answer your questions as best I can.
And Rainey may be able to speak to this too about providing these services. Like if we do send in a request for an interpreter for a parent meeting or a document to be translated, do we pay for that out of our budgets? What is that covered by the district since it's a district service?
So no, so we are one district, but there are many pots of money that pay these contractors. Like anything preschool related, preschool pays. Anything special ed pays. Anything expulsion hearings and legal and stuff, legal department pays. EL department or the district budget pays for anything district-wide, but being a district service doesn't count because at the end of the day, teachers are providing a district service. They're all, we be paying for everything. And we don't have the budget for, but every department pays depending on the nature of the meeting. What is the nature of the meeting? and then we can determine who's paying. Title I pays. Sometimes the school has to pay for things. Like, I'll give you an example, newsletters. If there is a principal or a counselor or an EL teacher district-wide, school-wide letter, the district pays for that, a newsletter, etc. The district pays for that. But if it's a kindergarten teacher that wants to send out a letter every week, unfortunately, we cannot pay for the translation of those individual teacher newsletters. Field trips are another example. Like I've been getting a lot of that right now. Everybody's planning their field trips, and like I'll use an example, 4-H camp. I received a translation paperwork. It was like 8 pages for 4-H camp, and they were requesting it be translated into several languages. The translation cost is $30 a page, standard translation, 3 to 4 days business turnaround. If it's a rush translation, it becomes a $40 a page translation. And so the school was saying, oh, the district is going to pay for it. 4-H camp is a third party. It is not Fayette County Public Schools. And unfortunately, we cannot pay for that. So when I communicated to the school, they said, okay, that's fine. The school will pay for it. I said, okay, so you're sending me 6 different languages. Each one is 8 pages. 8 times 3 is 24. So it's about $240 per language. Just want to verify that you are going to pay because you will be getting an invoice. At the end of the day, unfortunately, no, they couldn't pay that kind of money. But I always encourage, if it's a third party, reach out to them. They might already have those documents translated. We, Fayette County, unfortunately cannot pay for those translations for third parties. We'd be paying translations for YMCA when they send flyers about summer camps, for Parks and Rec when they send, flyers about everything, public library. We'd be paying for all of these third parties. And once you start paying for one, we'd have to pay for all. And unfortunately, Fayette County budget doesn't allow for third-party translations. So to respond to that, there are a lot of pots of money that pay. I do have a who pays what cheat sheet that I can share with Rainey, and she can share
That would
with
be
you
great.
all. Yes.
So it sounds like if it's a parent-teacher conference, for example, that would fall within EL services,
District budget pays
district
for that.
budget.
Yes.
If it's a family night, for example, Title I may be able to cover it, but that would need to be taken to the principal to reach out to the Title I lead.
Yes, so some schools will host Title I specific nights.
Yes.
Like, this is my Title I night, and I'm going to tell the parents what we're doing with our Title I money. This year we got, I don't know, making up numbers, $50,000, and we purchased a teacher, and we purchased software, and we did this. That is exclusively Title I will pay. But if you're having a family night, let's say XY school hosts monthly literacy nights. It's a family night, and it's not only for like kindergarten or first grade. It has to be school-wide. It's for all grades. District budget covers that expense for the interpreters and for the document translations, the invitations, the flyers. Come, don't join us, don't forget. We cover that expense with the district budget.
That is helpful for me to know too. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so that's all I had, just in a nutshell, what goes on in our department and the language access services that are available to you. If you think of anything else, you have my email, you have my number, send me an email. I'll be happy to support you as best I can.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm going to draw names really quick for prizes. So Mary Jo,
Yay, thank you.
Madeline, and Adrian. So I will send that your way. Thank you all for being here. Bye.